So apparently Final Fantasy fans are eating right now, especially with the recent release of Final Fantasy 16's DLC, which the community came to the conclusion that the DLC is actually pretty good. And then just a couple days ago, Square Enix made an announcement that they will be doing a Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth direct, which was about 20 minutes long. And I got a chance to sit down and actually watch the direct with my brothers Keel Lancer and DX Strike. And Square Enix pretty much wanted to let the fans know that, hey, we're going to introduce some other elements to you guys and what to expect from Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth in terms of gameplay mechanics, environments, the characters, and most importantly, the story itself, which they pretty much left us off on a crazy cliffhanger in Final Fantasy 7 Remake. So we got a little bit more details, but the icing on the cake is the fact is that they pretty much revealed that they will be releasing a demo of Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth the same night after the direct itself, which got the internet going crazy. And everybody couldn't wait to get their hands on it. And a lot of people that actually played it, especially my brothers Keel Lancer and DX Strike, really enjoy it. And people said that the demo itself had met their expectations. And some people saying that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth may be actually Game of the Year. But we will have to wait and see when it comes to that. But what about me? What are my thoughts? Have I even played the demo? And the answer is no, because I chose not to play the demo. And why is that? Well, for the simple fact is that Square Enix has essentially, I would say, sold me on the idea of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to the point where I don't want to spoil my excitement or my hype for it. And I noticed that in this day and age, when it comes to video games, we are always constantly wanting to get, I guess you say, confirmation. We always want to see what a game has to offer through all these different trailers. And then we get more excited for the trailers itself. And then once the game launched, I guess you would say my hype and my excitement for the game is not as strong than when it was before the game actually came out and we're getting teased and given all this information for said title. So I decided to take it upon myself not to spoil myself for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by playing the demo. And the Square Enix is already talking about that they're going to expand on the demo to allow you to do exploration and everything on the demo, so you get a chance to actually feel, because they want to put emphasis on that. Now, me saying this and me telling you guys that I've been sold on Final Fantasy Rebirth, I know it could possibly trigger just a set group of people as well, me saying that, because if you are new to the channel, I've always made videos talking about Final Fantasy VII in general, because I'm a big Final Fantasy VII fan. Final Fantasy VII, I wouldn't say it's my introduction to Final Fantasy, because I heard of Final Fantasy. I've seen Final Fantasy VI on the SNES at the time, but Final Fantasy VII was my first Final Fantasy game at launch that I've ever played as from the Final Fantasy series itself, and I've grown attachment to the series ever since then and went back and played all the other older Final Fantasy games. Now, if you've seen my videos, I talked about how Final Fantasy VII Remake had pretty much ruined my expectations, or pretty much, I guess you would say, left me disappointed, was for the fact is that I always wanted a Final Fantasy VII Remake, a true remake. I'm talking about the original Final Fantasy and just remaking it to meet modern standards and modern sensibilities as far as graphics, gameplay, but also keep the story intact while adding to the story, not changing the story, but adding to it, things that OG Final Fantasy VII fan would not expect, and to also make it a fresh experience, because this is something that was never included in the original. But instead, what we got with Final Fantasy VII Remake was something completely different. It was more of not a remake, it was more of a reimagine more than anything else. It just took familiar set pieces, characters, and pretty much retelling or telling a completely different story and introducing different themes, which is fate, or I would say destiny, which a lot of people would say that it got that Tetsuya Nomura touch to it, which is you will find in Kingdom Hearts. And it did give me that kind of feel at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake when we had to fight fate itself. But this overall, the remake had left so much to be desired as far as the story is concerned, because it really did piss me off at the fact is that, hey, we didn't get this is not what I signed up for. I did sign up for an actual remake, a one-to-one remake with some additional things added to it, but we got a completely different game altogether, which it did upset a certain group of people within the fan base itself. And after you guys have witnessed these videos where I talked about the Final Fantasy VII compilation and how much I said the Final Fantasy VII compilation has, ruined Final Fantasy VII itself. And then of course we have Ever Crisis going through the backstory of Sephiroth, which is something that I really didn't want because, Sephiroth, I like the fact that he was a mystery, that we didn't know much about him. I think it made him much more bigger than life. And the fact is that I didn't like Crisis Core because I didn't want emphasis on Zack. I think Zack was much more bigger than life because we didn't know much about Zack. He was just that vehicle to push Cloud, in the direction that he went towards, but it is what it is. And I made plenty of videos of that. And a lot of you guys who are OG fans actually agree with me and everything. So to hear me say that Square Enix has sold me on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, what does that mean? Has my opinion changed when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake as far as the story is concerned? And my opinion is no, my opinion haven't changed. And this is something that I've learned and I have come to terms with, because I have some people in the comments and a couple of my videos saying that, dude, like, how can you support Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Is like Square Enix is just shitting on the OG and they're breaking the game up into 3 different parts and they're cutting content by doing that. Now, Vincent is not playable in Rebirth and Sid is not playable, and they're changing so many aspects and cutting so many things from it. It feels like we're being scammed. And I came to terms with this certain situation. Why all of a sudden that I'm really looking forward to this game, despite me still not really that cool with the story changes or the direction that it could possibly go in. Now, I've always stated, when it came to Final Fantasy VII Remake, I've always said that I dislike the direction of the story. It feels more like fan fiction than anything. But I never denied the fact is that I had a blast with the game. I enjoyed every aspect as far as the combat is concerned. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake had pretty much cracked the code of mixing both ATB combat system and that turn-based system, and they found the right formula, that hybrid. It just worked. And I just love the combat system altogether. I sat down for hours. And you know me, I've been talking on my channel of how that, gaming has become stale for such a long time. AAA gaming and everything. But when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and I popped it into my PS4, and then all of a sudden I just started playing the game and got hooked. And it's been a long time since I actually put hours into a game, besides, I guess you would say, Xenoblade 2 on Nintendo Switch. But I have put countless of hours in Final Fantasy VII Remake, experimenting with the weapon system and the materia system and the new combat system all together. And I enjoyed every aspect of that. And that's what makes me and brings me back to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, as far as people saying, as far as the story is concerned, of how that it's Square Enix is robbing the fan base by cutting the game into 3 parts. And this is what I learned, and this is what I came into terms with, is that Final Fantasy VII Remake and the trilogy itself, I came to terms that, it's never going to be the OG. We're never going to get the OG remake that I want. I came to the understanding, and I came to acceptance that I would never get the OG. Yes, the OG exists. Everybody keeps saying you can just go play the original, but you gotta understand how I feel. And how also my brothers feel. My brothers wanted to play the OG, but with new hardware. A lot of people don't want to go back. You understand? You telling people to go back and play the old polygon version. And a lot of people don't want to do that, especially newer gamers. They don't want to go back. Some will, but a lot of gamers don't want to go back and play that old version. I could play it, and I will play it. I want to do another run of that, but a lot of people don't. And me playing the original Final Fantasy VII in the story, I would love to see that again, but with modern hardware, and we didn't get that. So that pretty much did frustrate me and a lot of other players, but I've grown to accept that this is not going to happen. And in fact, Final Fantasy VII Remake and the trilogy itself is not really cutting content at all, because it's actually an entirely different game. It's not the OG. Totally different game. It takes the story and it's telling a different story, which makes it a completely different game, but it uses the Final Fantasy VII, the original OG, as its foundation, and then they just branch off from there and to tell a completely different story. So in a sense, even though I don't like it, in a sense, since it is pretty much a new story, it's a new game, which means they can make the game into 3 different parts because it's not the OG. And I've also learned this from people in the comments where, you know, are frustrated with me saying, dude, how can you support this? I said to myself, yes, I don't like the story, or I'm not really like convinced that this story is going to end well. But I had to make a decision. Am I going to rob myself because I love the OG so much to the point where I don't want to actually play the game that's actually fun? Because the game is fun. The remake, I had a good time with it. So am I going to stop having fun with the game because of me being an OG fan and really love the story that much? And I thought about it. After watching the presentation for Final Fantasy Rebirth, the direct, you can't say that this game is half-assed. You cannot say that this game is cutting corners. You can tell with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that these developers put a whole lot of time into this. They put a lot of love and a lot of passion. Seeing the environments and how expansive these areas are. And they're talking about that the game is going to be somewhere around 50 hours probably for the main story, and then 100 hours just by trying to do everything you can possibly do. This game is jam-packed with content. Different quests that was never before seen in the original game that they're adding into the game. And then they have a shit ton of mini games, which Final Fantasy games are known for. They have their mini games, but they're even added in mini games that were never in a Final Fantasy VII game. I don't ever recall seeing a card battle game in Final Fantasy VII. We've seen it in Final Fantasy VIII, we've seen it in Final Fantasy IX, and many other future Final Fantasy titles, but I don't ever recall playing a card game in Final Fantasy VII, the OG version. So they even added that to the game. And then the combat mechanics. I already enjoyed Final Fantasy VII combat mechanics, and then when I bought Integrate for the PlayStation 5, they introduced the linking system where you can link party members, the link Yuffie and Sonon together. And now they just took it a whole other step, took it a whole nother level to where you have skill trees for combinations of pairing different characters together for special team up attacks. And then on top of that, they have item crafting, which Final Fantasy VII never had. So apparently that you can see in this game that there's a lot to enjoy and a lot to be found in this game. So to simply say that this game is cheating out the fans, or is cutting corners, or is robbing the fans, or any type of negative as far as the gameplay itself, the game itself, I would say that that would be completely nonsense. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth showed me that, yo, they have a lot to offer in this game. And I want to go into this game, and I want to play as much of it as possible. And me being a Final Fantasy VII fan, despite me not liking or afraid of where this story is going, and it seems like fan fiction to me, you don't understand how deeply connected I am with Final Fantasy VII itself. I hated the compilation, would never play the compilation ever again, but I love these characters. And when I see these characters on screen, when I look at, when I was watching the direct, and every time I see these trailers, it just takes me back to my childhood. It's like revisiting or seeing old friends again every time I see them on the screen. And I want to see these characters. I want to see Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, Red 13, Barrett, Vincent, Yuffie, Sid. I want Kate Sith. I want to see all of them once again. It's like revisiting, seeing old friends, having a reunion, catching up with these characters. And the fact is that now I see them in modern today's technology and everything, and it just blows my mind of how far technology has come, despite the fact the story, where like me not liking the story too much, but I'm willing to actually play the game because I enjoy the other aspects, the gameplay, and even the English voice dub. And I know voice dubbing for English always gets a bad flack, but to say that the English voice dub is trash for this game, like, you gotta be crazy for saying that. I think this is some of the best voice acting I've heard in an English dub in a very long time, and I can't wait to hear these new voice lines and see these characters in situations that I'm familiar with in Final Fantasy VII, but of course with a different twist, since this is Rebirth and everything like that. And the thing that really stands out the most for me too, of course, is the story. I am intrigued, not like, oh, intrigued like I'm excited in a sense, but more like I'm curious, like, why did these developers decide to go this direction for Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy? Why they're doing this? What, like, is it worth it? This is a big gamble, because Final Fantasy VII is such a big property here, especially here in the West. Everybody have known Final Fantasy because of Final Fantasy VII. They got people hooked to it. So I'm saying to myself, the thing that got me curious is, why are they taking such a risk to do this? Will it stick the landing? Will I walk away from Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy and say to myself that, damn, this was a pretty good story? I mean, so far right now, it really got me scratching my head and it really put, leaving a sour taste in my mouth. But I really won't know until I step into this game and see this game to its conclusion. And the good thing for you guys, especially the OG fans who won't even decide to pick up a controller and play this game, you'll be able to come to my channel to be able to see if this is going to actually be worth playing in the end, or see that this story is actually a complete shit show by the time that this game actually comes to its final conclusion, and see how this all wrapped up, since the director said themselves that this is supposed to line up with Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. So we're going to see how this is going to line up, how this is all going to play and fall in line with Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, because right now, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. It kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball Super, how Dragon Ball Super takes place before the ending of Dragon Ball Z, and how would, after seeing Super Saiyan God and all these other type of transformations, how would you be able to make that line up perfectly for what we saw at the end of Dragon Ball Z? And it's the same thing that I'm seeing here when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy. This is all supposed to connect and line up with Advent Children. So it'll be interesting to see how all this is all going to come together, and hopefully that you guys will come here to be able to hear my opinion on it. Those of you who are playing it and enjoying it get to hear my opinion, and those who are OG fans and it won't come nowhere near this game would like to just be, curious to see how it all turns out, because this is one hell of a gamble that if they mess this up, I don't know what to say. I think this is going to leave a sour mouth in the gaming industry itself if this thing doesn't stick the landing with this. And what's Final Fantasy, and it also has you wondering, was Final Fantasy VII a lightning in a bottle that they just could not replicate, or they just did not want to compete with? So that's pretty much my overall thoughts. I mean, no, I won't be playing the demo. Won't be playing it at all. I'm just going to wait until the game launches February 29th. I already have I've had the game pre-ordered not too long ago, so I'll be picking up the game and looking forward to actually playing it and see where the story is going to go. And I just can't wait to just sink my teeth into the gameplay, which that's what I'm really, really looking forward to. But those of you guys who are stubborn and still contemplating should you give the game a try, I guess I would say just wait, come to my channel, listen to what I have to say if you're interested in it, or just say that, just accept it. Accept that this is not the OG Final Fantasy, that we're not going to get it. We're never going to get the OG Final Fantasy VII. So as long as you get that out your head and just accept this for what it is, maybe you'll be able to just actually play the game. But that's it. Definitely want to hear your thoughts. Are you picking up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? And those of you who are OGs, tell me why you don't want to play the game, or are you still contemplating whether or not that you will play Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy? So leave your thoughts in the comment sections below, and I'll be seeing you when the game launches. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.